Hello, welcome back to week number 2. I'm so excited for this week because we are making pizza 2 different ways. So if you guys are going with way number 1, you guys are going to need some ready to bake pizza dough. You can make pizza dough from scratch. It is pretty tough though. I've never done it, so I'm not going to start a video on that. Maybe in a few weeks I can do that. You're going to need some pizza sauce. They sell this at the supermarkets. You can use marinara sauce or tomato and basil, whatever you can find. You need a rolling pin to roll out that pizza dough. Additionally, I have some flour on this baking sheet. If you are gluten-free, you can use gluten-free flour. And I have cheese too. I personally don't eat dairy cheese, so I found some great vegan cheese, dairy-free mozzarella. That'll do the trick. I also have some Parmesan here if you want to top that off. So that is for pizza number 1. Additionally, you're going to need some sort of spray for the baking sheet or for the pizza pan. If you're doing it in a pizza pan, I also have some vegetables here to cut up for our pizza to have some toppings. So we're going to get started first with the dough. So I have this dough in a bag from Trader Joe's. It's parve, so I like it, so therefore if you want to put non-dairy cheese on it, it works. Also, it's good for making like breadsticks and calzones and all that. So what I like to do with this is I like to let it sit a little bit from taking it out from the fridge for about like 20 minutes. That's what it says on the packages. So this way it's not so sticky when it comes out of the bag and you don't want cold dough. Okay, so I have this baking sheet here lined with flour. Okay, so like I said, you can use gluten-free flour if you need. You don't need so much of it, just to make sure it doesn't stick to the baking sheet. So what I like to do is I like to turn it just inside out, and then you kind of just pull at it. See, it's this one big ball of dough. This one's nice because it's flavored also, so we'll see how it comes out. Okay, so should plop it in the middle, and then just kind of start spreading it, because we want it to be ready for this. I think it's going to be delicious. Okay, so if you can see this, we have a nice, pretty even piece. You can toss it a little bit if you want, just to make sure the edges, you should use your thumbs to just keep evening it out and thinning it out a little bit so it's not too thick. Okay, and if you want, you can start putting the tomato sauce or marinara sauce, or if you want to do a white pizza, which is just cheese only and toppings, totally, you can do that. Whatever works for you. You can vary this recipe a lot. Like I said, using gluten-free flour or even doing some homemade dough, which I'm sure is great. But once I saw yeast in the recipe, I was a little nervous because I'm not quite sure how to work with that yet. So I will get there. Okay, so now let's transfer this to our baking sheet. And by the way, some people say you could turn it over so this way your pizza cooks nice and flat, but I'm a little nervous to try that. So I'm just going to take a regular baking sheet like we did last week. We're going to spray some Pam on it. Make sure you have parchment paper on it, not tin foil. Parchment paper should be on there. And just give it a nice spray. This way your pizza does not stick. Okay, and we're going to transfer this over to here. And you can just keep spreading that so it takes up almost the whole baking sheet. Next, we have our vegetables. You can use half an onion for this and half a yellow pepper. I have a whole of each right now because I'm going to use the other half for the cauliflower pizza recipe. So stay tuned for that recipe if you're interested. If not, I'm just going to give this a quick wash, and then we're going to slice it up. Green top, that green stem on the top, and then it's got the bottom. So for this, since we're only using half of it, you guys can just cut it right in the middle and then take from the bottom because the top has those seeds, and then just make a small cut at the bottom just to take off this part. Take those bottoms off, so then you have a nice clean piece right there. Through the middle there is some of that still, so you can just take that right off. So the best way to spread out the sauce would be with a ladle. I did not have a ladle, so I'm gonna use a spoon, and you can put just a few big drops in the middle and then use the bottom of the spoon just to kind of spread it out. So here we go, so you see it. So I'm gonna put 1, 2, 3. Just spread it out. Each of the part of the pizza should have some sauce on it. See how, okay. Cheese, I like to spread from a little bit higher, so this way you get even distribution. Just the thing I like to do, but everyone likes to do it a little bit different. Okay. Alright, that seems like a good amount of cheese. And now we have our vegetables. So we're just gonna toss those over like so. So now we're gonna put this in the oven. Make sure you get your oven mitts, and then check back in a few minutes. Okay guys, if you're tuning in for the cauliflower pizza edition of this, which is great because it's gluten-free, it's lower in carbohydrates definitely, and it's a new type of thing, so I'm really interested in seeing how it tastes. Okay, so what you're gonna need for this recipe, you're gonna need at least 1 big head of cauliflower, or 2 small ones, sorry. Or what you can use is something called cauliflower rice, which comes in the store, frozen usually, or refrigerated, something like this. This is what I used. It's really easy because then you don't have to go through the process of making it into rice. This is what it should look like. You see there, cameraman? Just kidding, we don't have a cameraman, we have a tripod, which is almost as good. So you're gonna need at least 1 to 2 bags of those, depending on how big of a pizza you wanna make. Okay, so what we're gonna do with this to get started is we're gonna cut up our cauliflower. Cauliflower is an amazing vegetable. You can use it in a lot of different ways. I've never used it for pizza before, so let's see how it comes out. Okay, so when cutting cauliflower, there's this big plant at the bottom, this awkward plant, so you want to make sure you take that off first thing always. Okay, and once you have the plant off, you can wash it or you can wash it before. But if you wash it, make sure you dry it. So in addition to our cauliflower and rice cauliflower as part of the recipe, you have some tomato sauce here, obviously, for the top of the cauliflower pizza crust. You have some Parmesan cheese, which is really important. If you can get Parmesan or mozzarella, you need it to make the crust, because otherwise the crust won't stay together. Same thing with at least an egg, or if you're making a few of these, you need 2 eggs, depending on how big your batch is. Okay? Additionally, if you're using a head of cauliflower like this, or you have florets that you found in the store, that's amazing. You're gonna have to have a food processor or a blender of sorts to break it down into pieces like this. Okay? And then, if you want to get fancy, which I'll show you guys how to do today, to dry out your cauliflower is really easy, but you will need a skillet and a dish towel like this, kitchen towel like this, because cauliflower is a very moist, heavy vegetable, so you're going to need to drain out all that liquid so that your crust comes out delicious and crunchy, okay? So you're going to start off by cutting up this big head of cauliflower into smaller florets, and then we will pulse it down in the food processor to pieces of rice cauliflower, and then we'll transfer that to a skillet to cook out all the water, and then whatever's remaining we'll just drain out. If you don't want to do that, you can get already made cauliflower crust. I had a hard time finding ones that were kosher, but if you find by all means, they're usually in the frozen section. But this is just to make our crust. So it's a little bit of a more involved step than buying already made pizza dough. So thank you for tuning in for this, a little bit of a more advanced part of this. Again, if you need help with this, make sure to ask an adult. You can ask me. Please don't hesitate, but let's get started with this. Cauliflower. So the cauliflower, like we said, we took off that big green part before. It still has a stem in the middle there, so we're gonna want to try and cut around that. And then you're gonna want, what's left is just that stem part, because that's not gonna cook down. It's just gonna be hard. About yay big. We're gonna put them into our food processor in batches, and then I will show you what they should look like in this bowl over here. I encourage you having at least one mixing bowl for this. I have two because I made an earlier version of the cauliflower rice in the skillet, so I want to show you what it looks like when it's dried out. Okay, so I'm gonna pulse this. If you have a Ninja or a KitchenAid or a Cuisinart, there's a pulse button usually, so you just click that a few times. Okay. You who were watching our first pizza video, this was in the oven, just came out, looks delicious. It was in the oven for about 10 minutes because if you see, my crust is much thicker than most of you's. But it looks great and I can't wait to eat it, and I can't wait to see your videos of the recipe for it. If you like your cheese a little bit darker, then leave it in longer, but definitely check on it after about 6-7 minutes. Because at that point it starts bubbling usually and you don't want to burn your pizza. So I hope you enjoy, and let me know what you think. So now for those of you who are joining us who are doing the cauliflower pizza, so I processed my head of cauliflower. It wasn't such a big head, but it got a lot out of it. So this is what you want your cauliflower rice to look like from the food processor. Kind of looks like couscous. It's got like a flaky kind of texture, and if you feel it, it's really cold and wet. If you kept your cauliflower in the fridge like I did, it's really wet. So what we want to do is we want to get out that moisture. So in order to do that, we're going to transfer this to a skillet. Okay? I'll show you what my skillet looks like. So a good skillet like this, I just used it for rice cauliflower before, so that's why it has some stuff on it. But a good skillet like this and a spatula. You want the spatula so that you could pull out any moisture that's left. So what you're wanting to do is you're going to want to put it on medium to high heat. Make sure there's an adult around if you don't usually turn the stove on yourself. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to load it up with the rice cauliflower. Don't fill it up too much. You want to give it room to move things around. You can do it in different shifts if you need. So then what you're going to do is you're going to transfer that to a clean bowl. Okay? Any of the hot cauliflower that you put on there, what you're going to do is you're going to leave it on the skillet for about 5 minutes until all the steam is out pretty much. Okay? Or what you can do to test is you can press your spatula against the cauliflower, and if there's no water coming out, then you know it's pretty much done. It also smells like toasty kind of. You're going to want to keep rotating that cauliflower for about 5 minutes. Okay? And after 5 minutes, you're going to transfer whatever is pretty much toasted and moisture gone. You're going to put it into a bowl like this, a big mixing bowl like this. And then what you're going to do then is you're going to have to drain that. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to drain that in a few minutes because I got to get the moisture out of this, and I'll be right back. Okay, to drain that, you need a kitchen towel like this, nice and sturdy, pretty big, so that you can wrap up whatever cauliflower isn't fully drained. And then you're going to want a glass measuring cup. Okay, so for those of you who are trying to drain this cauliflower from the skillet, I put about 3/4 of it into the skillet. You're gonna hear a sizzle when you first put that on, it's okay. But like I said, you just stir this around, and if you smell it, it smells like it's getting toasted, which is exactly what you want. Make sure you press that against the rice cauliflower to get any moisture out, okay? And you want a second mixing bowl so that you can drain it from the moisture. Okay, so you see how there's like pretty much no steam coming out? So that's a good sign. That means that we are pretty much toasted with this one. So I'm gonna pour all that into this bowl. Off and toasted. This is what my cauliflower rice looks like. Sorry about that. Nice and toasted. It's a little bit brown. So you're going to want to grab a towel. Sorry, I don't like using that towel for this. You're going to want to grab a towel, nice big towel. So what we're going to do is you're going to take about a handful of the rice cauliflower, put it right in the middle of the towel. Okay? If you're watching, so you're going to pull up from all ends. Okay? You want to hold it tight. Okay, and that cauliflower should be at the bottom right there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to turn and squeeze. Okay, you're going to squeeze for any moisture you can get out. If you want to do that for the whole amount that you made, you can definitely do that. I'm not sure if I'm going to because mine looks pretty dry right now. One thing I forgot to mention is that your oven should be preheated to 425 in order to make the crust. We're going to do this cauliflower recipe in 2 steps. So we're going to make the crust, which we're getting there, and then once we make the crust, we're going to pull it out of the oven, then we're going to put our toppings on, okay? I sliced up another half of a yellow pepper if you're watching the first half of the video, and I sliced up another half of a Spanish onion. Okay, also, you're going to need your baking sheet ready. You should spray it down with some olive oil. Also, you should have a nice spoon so that you can mix everything together. Okay, so for our crust, we're gonna have that rice cauliflower that we worked so hard on. It's very involved. I hope you followed along. If not, you can always rewind the video, pause it, fast forward, ask me any questions. Okay, so depending on how many bags of cauliflower you use or how many bags of cauliflower rice you use, you should be using between 1 and 2 eggs. I'm going to use 1 because I don't think I made so much of it. But if you make more, you should add another egg, okay? So we're just going to crack an egg right there. Make sure none of the shell goes in. And if the shell goes in, you can always use this part of the egg to scoop it out. I've done it before. It works. Okay, and then you're going to take a handful of Parmesan cheese. Preferably if it's stringy like this. If not, it's okay. Take a handful of Parmesan and a handful of mozzarella. Okay, but make sure you save some mozzarella for the topping of this. Okay, and then you can use either your hands or a nice big spoon. I'm going to use my hands. You're going to mix that all together. Cauliflower. You can plop it right in the middle and then put whatever else you have in there. Try to keep it together. I know it's a little bit more challenging than your typical dough, but what you're going to do is you're going to use your hands and you're going to try as best as you can to spread it out evenly. You want to make sure that this crust is nice and protected. You see how the edges are nice and firm. Okay, so this is going to go in the oven for 5 to 7 minutes, but use your judgment, because if it's not done by 7 minutes, then keep it in there a little bit longer. Just depends on how big of a piece you made and how thick it is. Okay, so now that our crust is done, look, you see how nice brown that is? It's gonna get a little bit more brown on this edge than it would in the middle. That's totally fine. Mine ended up being in the oven for a little bit longer than I had thought, probably just because of how thick it is and how big of a piece it is. But yours will vary, so keep an eye on it. Also, you can raise the temperature. I raised it to 450 halfway through when I saw it really wasn't doing much. Okay, so now we're going to do our pizza part of this. Like spicy, but whatever floats your boat. Okay, so we're gonna pop this back in the oven. It shouldn't be too long because this is already hot and the oven's already hot. So let's put this in here and let's see how it comes out. So guys, our pizzas are done. The final step would be to use a pizza cutter to finish it off. Our cauliflower pizza ended up being in the oven for about 10 minutes. At about 450, you can turn the temperature down to make sure it doesn't get all crispy on the outside, which I did not do because I like it a little bit more burnt. Same thing with this pizza here. I like my pizzas a little bit more burnt, but definitely adjust the temperature to your needs. And if you have any questions about this recipe or anything wasn't clear, please let me know. And again, you can always fast forward or rewind the video or pause if you need more time. But I hope you enjoyed, and it looks delicious, and I cannot wait to try it. Until next week, take care.